Now, Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon.
Welcome to this episode of Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon. Joining me, as you can see, it is the one and only Gilby Clarke, formerly of Guns N' Roses. He's got a new single out, or in fact two. Rock and Roll is Getting Louder, which I'm gonna say, I think I like it as much as Tijuana Jail, but still, Tijuana Jail, man. Classic. And of course, the latest one is The Gospel Truth, and lurking in the background, of course, we cannot see him. It is the one and only Alan Niven. Bonjour, Alain. How are you?
Bonjour, ça va?
Yes.
Et vous?
Yes, très très bien. So, I guess we'll start off with the obvious. When was the last time, if ever, that you were in a room, Gilby Clarke and Alan Niven together, both, of course, as folks know, coming from the Guns N' Roses family?
Well, it's been a few years, right, Alan?
Yeah, quite a few. I think the last time that we actually saw each other face to face was at some sort of TV thing. And I was there with Clarence Clemens, and you came and introduced yourself, and we had a chat. And as you left, I turned around to Clarence and I said, "Well, I think they might have actually lucked out in trying to replace Izzy. He seems like a really cool dude."
Oh, thank you. That's a pretty darn good endorsement, because I know how close you were to Izzy, and obviously I've always been very candid of how important I knew Izzy was to the band. And, you know, for me, I mean, it was an impossible task. I mean, nobody really can replace him, but I always felt, you know, when things change in bands, you know, hopefully, you know, you're taking the band to another step, better or worse or whatever, but at least it's different and it's going in the right direction. And hopefully that was my job, and happy to be a part of it.
Yeah, I think... Go ahead.
The one thing that I think I divined in the moment was that I was talking to a genuine rock and roll soul and spirit. And that was why I turned around to Clarence and I said, they may have lucked out. They may have got somebody who is a genuine rock and roll and spirit, because that's, I mean, for me, Izzy was the center of gravity in that band. And I felt his approach and his attitude was unimpeachable. And in that respect, it was like, who the hell do you replace Izzy with? Well, they got lucky. They got you.
I'm going to second that. You know, as a fan back in the day, you know, when you lose a member, you lose an Ace Frehley or a Peter Criss, you go, oh, and then you go Guns N' Roses, and you lose an Izzy, you go, oh. But Gilby was great. I mean, you know, Pawn Shop Guitars, as a solo album, showing his writing strength and musical strength, just goes to show that, I don't know if they lucked out. I think they made a wise choice. I don't think it was luck. I think it was well done. Anyway, Gilby, let's talk Rock and Roll is Getting Louder. And if you don't mind, can we talk a little bit about the Sturgis? You went out to Sturgis on the bike ride. Is that something that we can discuss at all?
Absolutely. I'm an open book, Mitch. You know, all I can do is give, you know, say my piece, you know, where I'm at. I mean, we're all different individuals. Hopefully we all don't agree about everything. Otherwise life would be boring.
Yeah. Now, folks, you'll notice that once in a while the Wi-Fi will skip. Gilby's out in the mountains, and every so often it'll drop out. But yeah, it's okay. So let me start with Sturgis, because a lot of people went out.
Yep.
And you got the guys from Jackal and Buck Cherry and Smash Mouth. I can't say I can't say their stupid name. It's not a stupid name. But you know, you look in the media, and a couple of the bands got vilified, and others nobody said anything about Night Ranger, for example. You know, nobody said anything about Jackal, but yet Smash. Fuck it.
Smash Mouth. Smash Mouth.
Wow. You know, with my birthday coming this week, maybe the age is starting to come on. But did you go there to perform, or were you just there to ride? And what was the sense there? Was there a sense of anxiety, or was there a sense of fuck it, we're just gonna do what we do normally? Like, what was sort of the whole vibe?
Well, the vibe I got was fuck it.
Right.
I'm not saying that's where I was from, but that's what it was there. You got to understand, this is very much a red state. There were huge Trump, like not rallies, but stating their love for him all over the place. It's very much Trump country, and they were very much following their leader. They didn't give a fuck what anybody said. I thought if there was any kind of misrepresentation is, look, we all know the news is the news. It's a TV show, just like The Simpsons is a TV show. It's made up. So when they grab a story, they grab it and then they go and they look, for the 10 people that can validate their story. I'm not saying all those, those people aren't speaking the truth. They're speaking their truth. But for the most part, I can honestly say most people didn't give a flying fuck. They weren't wearing masks. But in defense of Sturgis, Deadwood, and the surrounding communities, if you walked into a bar, if you walked into a restaurant, they were just like they were in Los Angeles. They had signs saying, please respect social distancing. They'd have one booth open, one booth closed. All the waiters and waitresses were wearing masks. They were wearing, shields. They had gloves on. There was only one time that I experienced someone not wearing a mask, that only one time was a waiter, and I was gone for 2 weeks. So it was there. It's just the people walking around, they were walking freely without a mask. I went with my buddy Paul. We wore a mask the whole time. We actually had gloves on, putting gas in our bikes and things like that. For me, here, my message was, I've been going to Sturgis for 30 years and I enjoy it, whether I'm playing or not. I enjoy the atmosphere. I am a biker. I own many bikes. I love the ride. I love the atmosphere of when you're out there at that time with all your comrades. So I really wanted to support it. And I think one of the main reasons that Sturgis went on with it was the fact that if Sturgis didn't exist this year, there's a very good chance that it would never happen again. They rely on those 2 weeks, for their whole income. If they didn't have it this year, there's a very good chance it would never happen again. I almost felt like I owed it to them, to be there and support it. I supported it responsibly. It was other people. It was their choice to do what they wanted. I did go to some shows. I went to see Steel Panther play. I went to see George Lynch play. But I didn't really go anywhere else. I like I said, I went to, a couple bars here and there and mainly rode. But it was definitely an interesting experience.
Yeah, I can imagine. Go ahead. Alan, free to ask.
I got to ask, do they still, after, if they're impressed with a particular performance, do they still throw their old ladies on the stage?
Yeah, yes and no. I didn't see any of that this time, but the main thing is after, they have like a row of bikes by the stages and they will rev their engines when a performer is doing well. Just so you know, Mitch and Alan, we were booked to play. My band was going to play Sturgis. We chose not to. And it had nothing to do with the pressures and things like that. It was just the simple things of, the risks outweigh, the good. Obviously money in our pocket is a great thing in this time and age, but I just didn't feel it was a responsible thing for us to do at that time.
Okay, well, let me take you up on that in terms of responsible things to do. When do you think that you will be back out on the road? And when do you think it'll be responsible to be back out on the road? Because here in Quebec, and I'm going to speak for the Quebec situation, we're allowed gatherings of 250 people, and the shows are open. So if you're in a small club and 249 people show up, the show can go on, completely government sanctioned. There's no... Where are you in that? Is the Quebec government out to lunch, or are you ready to go rock? Are you ready to rock and roll, get louder?
Boy, that is a hard question, Mitch. Once again, through all of this, we all have personal responsibilities. Unfortunately, sometimes people can't think for themselves and the government does have to intervene. And that's a shame, but that is what they have to do. If you can't think for yourself, we're going to think for you. I personally don't think we're ready yet. I really don't. I do think that there are some great ideas out there. They're not the best ideas, but sometimes we have to take baby steps, like some of these drive-in concerts. I'm actually enjoying all the, Zoom, Skype shows that they're having just because it shows something different, it's just something different from the normal. It's, I've always been big on, you know, we are, as an artist, it's our responsibility to be good musicians as well as good performers and good writers. And these performances show that aspect of people that can actually play their instrument, don't need, tracks and all kinds of stuff. And I enjoy that. I really do. I'm kind of digging the change, although
Yeah.
obviously, like everybody else, this is killing me financially,
Right.
because it's, this is our livelihood. And, Mitch, it's not going to get back to normal next year either. We're going to take a 2-year hit.
Yeah, I know. And you know what? There are some silver linings to this. There's a band called Trivium, and I'm sure you must have heard of Trivium. They're a
Of
great.
course.
They did an online stream, and it was reported in, I think, Billboard or Billboard Business. 12,000 tickets sold, 180,000 grand raked in. That's not bad.
That's friggin' incredible.
So yes, you can't go play the whatever Brass Monkey in Ottawa, but listen, Trivium probably don't get 12,000. They're not an arena act, and yet
Absolutely.
they had an arena audience and made almost 200,000 profit. That's not bad. And
yeah, no, I agree. Like I said, I
there's
like the
hope.
creativeness. I like the creativeness of what's happening right now. I know there are some people out there saying, "Oh, I'm tired of it. I'm over the Skype and the Zoom things." I'm personally not. I'd love to see, some of the bands that I like. I'd love to see Kiss do one, I'd like to see some groups out there doing these things because it shows a different side of them than the production that we're so used to seeing over these years. So I don't mind it. I really don't.
I don't, and I do want to get to the singles, but I'll just quickly ask Alan. Alan, if you were managing Gilby or managing Guns N' Roses today, what would you say to them? Do it, don't do it. What would you say in terms of streaming?
I would say that it's. I completely agree where Gilby's coming from. It's a case of challenge your creativity and challenge your perspective and how you're looking at how things are done, and to do an online gig and a pay-per-view and make it a big weekend event. Maybe even you talk to some promoters where they go into local little arenas and put up big screens and a decent PA in there, and it's maybe because of the nature of it, it's a $5 or a $10 ticket. So it's everybody else is suffering. So here's a way of people coming together and enjoying a show. And oh, by the way, wear your mask. I mean, I think Gilby will get a giggle out of this because he knows that I'm old and dilapidated. But I keep myself to myself because whatever the numbers they put on TV, I'm very aware that it only will take one to put me in a very bad state. And I'd only allowed 5 people to visit me in my home, Gilby.
Yeah.
And one of them got COVID the day he visited me and turned up positive and got very sick for a while. Out of 5 people since February, one of them got it. But I was fortunate. He caught it the night of the day he visited me. So, I get a little nervous about it, and I wear my mask out there.
Yeah. Now, let us talk Golden Robot Records, a great little company out of Australia. They've been signing a lot of these bands. Talk to me how you were approached by Mark and the not the band, but the company, I guess, for the lack of a better word. And what is the relationship in terms of albums? Are you doing sort of one and done, or do you have a 3-album deal? Like, is there going to be more Gilby music, or is there going to be these 3 singles, an album, and see you later? What's the deal with Golden Robot?
Well, the honest answer is I don't know what it's going to be. I know that I did do a run record deal with them because I have a record done. I usually, in my solo career, I don't like the I don't like having to deal with labels through the creative process. You know, I want to be able to make a record that I want to make. I don't need the input anymore. I mean, you know, maybe when I was 25 and 30, I did, but I don't need it anymore. So, I mean, I'm lucky enough that I have a really nice recording studio at my disposal. So I record the record, I finish it, and then I look for an outlet. I had been speaking to Mark for a long time. You know, when he first started, you know, he did ask me to sign with him in the beginning. He was a fan of the music. He owned, you know, pawn shop guitars, and I just didn't feel they were ready yet. I didn't want the record to come out to nothing. I mean, I do realize, look, they're solo records. I realize what they are. I realize, you know, what they can do as far as success, but it is a creative outlet for me. So finally, when I thought that they were getting some traction, you know, I signed my deal, and he spoke to me about, you know, modern music and how they're releasing. He says, look, I'd like to release 3 singles before we release the record. You know, do a release a single, then release a video, then maybe a live track, and, you know, kind of milk it a little bit. I have no problem with that. I mean, I trust his vision. And so that's the process we're in right now. We just released the second single, and the record was slated for the end of summer, but summer kind of came up on us fast. So we don't honestly have a release date for the record, but we are talking about the third single right now.
Okay, so let me ask you that. Okay, go ahead, Alan.
I was just going to say, Gilby, I'd take a little bit of confidence in their approach if I were you, because I think they've got the right viewpoint, right philosophy. Because, you know, being old enough to remember when a transistor first came into my hands and music became mobile and my own to some degree, one of the things I've, you know, watched with transistor to this, to that, to Walkman, to so on and so forth, is you have to be aware of your medium.
Yeah.
And our medium today is obviously the telephone. And when I do go out and I watch people in a restaurant, you know, as soon as the menus are gone, people take out their phones and they maybe stay on it for a few minutes. So, for example, working with a kid from Wales, a guitar player, we've yet to get out his first record, but we've established him with a certain profile because I got him to put up 30 seconds or a minute of a solo and keep putting them up. You know, that sort of idea of if you keep dripping water onto the stone, eventually you'll go through it idea. And it's worked for him. And he's got a profile in England now through doing that. So if anybody ever asks me and thinks that, you know, what does that old fool know these days? The one thing I say is the same things that apply are persistence and know your medium.
Yes.
And your regularity, you know, and if you can find small things to put up and keep posting regularly, then you're starting to use that social media and that telephone transportation to the maximum. So if they're saying put out singles, put out this, put out that, put out as much as you can from the record, because that's what's going to sustain interest and knowledge in what you're doing.
Absolutely. And you know, John 5, another great guitarist, he released last year or a couple of years ago, he did one video a month for about 10 months, and then at the end of it, he put out the album. So it's actually not a bad way, and it's also great to monetize it on YouTube. But anyway, let me ask you this, Gilby, because you talk about you don't want to be burdened by a record company. You want to have the creative process. But you know, going through your records and your albums and Pawn Shop Guitar, I mean, it's straight ahead rock and roll. So where does that? I mean, do you sit there and think to yourself, "Wow, I've got to do, you know, a dance record, a pop record, a punk record? Like why the creative freedom? Why is that so important in a sense when the albums have been just straight up rock and roll? Where do you need that creative freedom, if that makes sense?
Because you know why those records are that way is because I've had creative control. And when I was on a major label for my first record, which thankfully they let me have creative control. They were great. I was on Virgin. I was actually one of the first American artists they signed to Virgin America. And they were awesome at that point. But when it came to making a second record, let me tell you, the meetings we were having and the direction that they were steering in, because when I put that record out, grunge was strong. You know, a matter of fact, Cure Mary Kill Me was my first single. I was fighting Black Hole Sun on the charts. I mean, it's crazy. I was getting incredible airplay in you know, New York and Chicago and Dallas, and not in Los Angeles, but I was fighting Black Hole Sun. So that's how strong it was. So the times were changing. So when it came for the second record, you know, there was a lot of pressure on me to change my sound. You know, was, you know, modernize. You know, they're playing me. To be honest, I can't even remember the bands, but they was all detuned and very simplistic guitar playing and stuff. And that was at the point where, you know, we sat down. We said, look, you know, I'm here. You're here. Rock and roll. Let me go my way. You go your way. You know what you're doing. I know what I'm doing. But yeah, the creative controls let me make rock records because that's who I am.
Well,
and that's what I like.
You know what, Gilby? The minute that you allow someone to try and force you to anticipate who your audience ought to be and should be, and tell you to change who you instinctively know you are, you become an entertainer instead of an artist.
Yes.
And that's the biggest mistake you can make. You've always got to stay true to yourself.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing wrong with influence, you know, and there's nothing wrong with, you know, listening to your crew. You know, you choose those people wisely because you trust their opinion. I'm not saying I don't listen to people. I listen to people all the time. And I take a lot of ideas and opinions of people, but I do realize who I am and what I do and what I bring to music. And like I said, you know, it may just be this little part of rock and roll, but you know, I'm going to do my job.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, in terms of this album, the first single is a straight up rocker, Gospel Truth, a great song as well. Is that sort of the direction of the entire album?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I've always said that what I do is kind of like 4 parts of rock and roll. Like, you know, for me, when I listen to a lot of those wonderful 70s records that we all grew up on, I mean, we loved Queen, but you'd hear, you know, you're my best friend, and then Sheer Heart Attack. I mean, they really can go from here to here. And as a rock and roll fan, I didn't care. I love their music. You know, it was the same with all the band. Like for me, I'm a huge Rolling Stones fan. I'm a huge Beatles fan. It's like, you know, they can have Rocky Raccoon and then they can have Helter Skelter. So that's what I wanted for me. It's like, I love the Beatles. I love the Stones. You know, I love Guns N' Roses. I love Black Sabbath. All that is part of me. So on my records, like I said, you're going to hear a straight up rocker, but then you're going to hear a little bit of rootsier song that could have been on a Stones record or a Black Crowes record. Or you'll hear something that's got a little more melodic that could be on a Beatles record or Chris Cornell solo record. So that's all part of who I am. And like I said, I think the consistent on my records is my guitar and my voice, whether you like it or not. That's just the consistent.
Dude, I mean, I love it. I mean, you know, West of Sunset, Tijuana Jail, all that stuff. I just love it. I love it. Let me just quickly ask you about that first record, because you had a lot of GNR alumni on there. Dizzy, Matt, Slash, Axel, Duff. I mean, you had the whole complement. I think even Alan played a tambourine. Was there some pressure from the record company to get that association on there? I mean, was this done organically, or did they come to you and say, hey, you got to get Axel on there because we'll sell a few more? Like, how much of it was organic and how much was it record company meddling?
It was both. It was
okay.
both. So before I signed my deal with Virgin Records, I had been a Virgin America writer since 1988. I had a publishing deal with them. So I knew all the crew. You know, I've known the guys for a long time. So even through the Guns N' Roses experience, they were friends of mine. And when we started talking about doing a record, obviously doing the record came from the fact that Guns N' Roses' plan at that time was not to make a record, and we were going to have time to do whatever the hell we wanted. So I brought it up. I mean, this has been out there before. You know, I brought it up. I said, look, I got a bunch of songs. If you want them, you know, as Guns N' Roses starter songs or whatever, let me know, and we'll put them aside. But if not, I'm going to make this record. They passed on all of them. They said, nope, do your thing. And so the label came out to see GNR play one time. And of course, you know, they were talking with all the guys and they're doing their record company pitch. Hey, Gilby's making a record, Slash. Maybe you should come play on it. And, you know, Slash, you know, he'll play on anybody's record. Didn't matter whether I was in the band or not. But so yes, they did suggest it, but it wasn't. It didn't have anything to do with the deal. It really, they were like, hey, you're in the band. If they can, obviously, it helps it sell. Axl, they never really thought it would happen. I mean, I was actually surprised, to be honest, that Axl was going to be a part of it. I originally asked him just to come play piano on it. I thought that that would be kind of cool, have him play piano but not sing. But he finished his piano take in like one take, and he looked at me. He goes, "Do you want me to sing or what?" And I go, "What?" Sing. And so that did happen organically, and that is a true story. But yeah, it was a little bit of both.
The joy. Alan, you have a question?
Oh, yeah, I've got one question floating around in my mind.
Go ahead.
I didn't realize that Gilby was a South Bay boy, and that was a community down there that contributed a little bit to the rock and roll that came out in the 80s. And I was just wondering if he's got cherished memories of being a South Bay boy.
Oh yeah. So as Alan and I were talking before, I lived in the same area, where the Great White and GNR and all those bands started. I knew the luthier there, Jim Foote, who made guitars for a lot of great musicians stuff, and he was my repairman. And I met him because I worked at a shop there called Hogan's House of Music when I was a young kid. And
Oh, wow.
I was restringing guitars, which was my job, and I dropped one and I broke it. And so they sent me to Jim, and that's how I met Jim Foote. Was I broke a guitar at the store, but we became friends, and he started painting all my guitars different colors, like pink and purple, and a 1959 Les Paul Jr. I wanted it pink. And he goes, "You really want me to do this?" And I go, "Yes, I do." And he did it. So I played a lot of shows down there. There were clubs like the Fleetwood, the Sweetwater. I did all those. But, my dream as that, young teenager was to get to Hollywood. Bands like, London, Motley Crue, Van Halen, Quiet Riot. All those bands were just starting up at that time.
We had a house. We had a house down there in Hermosa Beach, and I was living with Don Dawkin, and next door was Lynch, and we was living with Bobby Blotzer.
Yeah.
You can imagine some of the evenings we had.
Oh,
Yes.
I can.
I've become friends with all those guys, Alan, and I remind them that I saw a Dawkins show at the Fleetwood with Don singing and playing guitar, Juan Crucier on bass, and Bobby Blotzer on drums, and that was Dawkins that I saw. And I
Yes.
got to tell you, it was phenomenal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Listen, Bobby Blotzer
was
is an
good.
exceptionally underrated drummer. I mean, he the Rat sound, that drum sound is as much as the Rat sound as the voice. I mean, to me, anyway.
Yeah, I agree. Well, also, I mean, my point is Don was a phenomenal guitar player. I mean, it was a three-piece band, and Don, and as a guitar player, I was watching him going, wow. And then obviously when I saw the evolution, of how Dawkins changed with George in a band, I'd seen George in many bands. I think his band was Exciter. It had a girl in it. Seeing him, at the Starwood and all those bands at that time, it was a great time, Alan. It was incredible to watch all those bands and all those unsigned bands, which were just insane how good they were, and they couldn't get a major label record deal.
Oh, it took us forever to crack it. Let me ask you another question, and if you're uncomfortable with it, just say fuck off, you silly old fart. I'd really love to know how you view, especially with long distance hindsight, how you look back on the Illusion tour. Was it everything that you hoped it would be? Was it over the top and ungainly? How did it feel to you?
Well, obviously it was a real interesting time in the band. For me, I was 30 years old when I got the gig, when I got the call from Slash to come in. And for me, starting with it was difficult in the sense it had nothing to do with the success of the band, had nothing to do with what the politics of the band were. For me, when Slash had asked me, I auditioned like 2 or 3 times, only playing 1 or 2 songs every time. He gave me the gig like on a Monday, and the next gig was like the next Monday in Boston. and I had to learn 50 songs in a week. And we're talking about 1991, not now where I can go to a video. I mean, I was glued to a cassette player with Izzy pan to the left, learning it. And that's all I cared about, was learning these songs and not looking like a fucking moron on stage, when I knew Izzy and I had a similar look. We both, we're from the Keith Richards, Johnny Thunder school. And there were probably a lot of people weren't going to know that I wasn't Izzy, And so that was what was on my mind. I was not thinking about the politics. I was not thinking about all the other stuff. I mean, I did gain the guys' confidence, and, they all had their roles in the band. I mean, obviously, Slash and Axl, really ran the band. Slash started depending on me for opinions, whether it was, checking a mix on a performance that was going out live or whatever, he would say, hey, listen to this and tell me what you think. Even when we're doing the records and stuff, I mean, he asked my opinion on mixes and things like that. And, I feel I earned that confidence, and I took it seriously. But to answer your question, Alan, it was awesome. I mean, I had been through enough bands before GNR. I've had 3 major label record deals before I got my Guns N' Roses gig. None of them were successful. When I got that gig, like I said, I had concentrate on the songs, but it was about enjoying myself. This was a gift. This band was successful. Every audience was sold out. They knew every word to every song. I was going to enjoy myself, and I did.
Yeah, you absolutely did here. I do want to ask you about MC5 and Heart, but since we're on the Guns N' Roses thing, I do want to ask you real quick. When the guys get together and do Velvet Revolver, and then they get together and they do this reunion tour, you don't get the call. Was that frustrating? Was that like, oh, thank God, because I'm doing something else in my life? Was that like, hey, what about me? Like, how did you sort of take that? I mean, Velvet Revolver, when they didn't have you, I went, hey, where the fuck's Gilby? How did you take it?
Well, first of all, when the Velvet Revolver thing happened, I was doing other things, and I didn't, to be honest, we weren't really in touch during those years, and I didn't even know the process of what they were doing when they were doing it. From when I heard about the band, they were already a band. Dave was already solidified in the band, and to be honest, I would never do that. To Dave, call Slash, go, hey man, what about me? I mean, they could have thought of me, whatever their reasons were. I don't know. But I honestly didn't think about it, and I didn't feel a slight about it in any way possible. Now, when the reunion came back, that's a different story, because, I mean, there was a lot of confusion as to what was going on. And I did have some private talks, with Slash, which I would never, reveal to anybody. But I don't honestly know if they knew really what was happening. I mean, Alan knows how Guns N' Roses do things, and sometimes they just do things and things happen. And I really felt that that's what the reunion was. It was like, hey, we're going to play Coachella. Let's play Coachella and take it from there. I mean, I was disappointed that, that I wasn't asked. Yep.
Gilby, do you know what the book was when they were going to do Coachella?
No, I don't know.
Amongst the crew?
No.
That they wouldn't get both of them done, and it would completely implode before it hit Mexico, or definitely implode in Mexico. But that was the betting within the crew.
I would have taken that bet. I mean, I was pretty clear when it was going on of saying I would be more surprised more than anyone that Slash and Axl would be on the same stage together. I honestly, as a betting man, I would have never bet on that. I saw both of them as being very, very far apart in the meeting of minds. But anyway, when it did happen, I was surprised just like everybody else. And then when I saw what they did, really it was just, Slash and Duff joined Axl's band. So therefore, my feelings weren't hurt. I understood what they were going and what they were doing. But, of course, in the back of my mind, I mean, I would have done the gig had they had asked me. But had they asked me to be the third guitar player, that is what made me have my disagreement with Axl, 30 years ago, was Guns N' Roses should not be a 3-guitar band.
Well, I mean, listen, it worked for Iron Maiden, but yeah, at some point it needs to be just 5 guys on the stage. So let me ask you this. In around 2005, I guess, you joined MC5 with Wayne Kramer. Mm-hmm. I mean, I saw him perform, I think 3 years ago, and this guy moves as if he's like 12. I mean, he just jumps around. What was that like, being part of the MC5 for even that moment that you were? Because I mean, they are revered, they're known. What was like that, being around Wayne Kramer?
It was insane, and it was amazing. As a guitar player, I was in heaven. Those songs are guitar heaven, especially as a rock and roll guitar player. I mean, I am one of those guys that really just takes my Les Paul and just get right into a Marshall, Vox, or whatever. And those songs are just guitar gems. And I've said this before. When I first learned the songs, the same thing, listening to them and learning them, it was nothing what I expected them to be until I sat down with Wayne going over guitar parts, and I'm going, it's like I wanted to kiss him. It's like, this is genius. This is just the best. I can't believe you wrote these things in 1967, 1969. These are amazing rock and roll songs. That's one of the crimes in rock and roll music, that the MC5, it isn't what Alice Cooper, and Iggy Pop are, because they really are an incredible, incredible band.
Moving forward, you've done Heart, you've done MC5, you've done what's her name, Kathy Valentine of the Go-Go's, and this other stuff. Do you still want to be that guy that has that sideman gig and go, tour with whoever, In Excess or whatever? Or do you just want to be Gilby the solo guy and work on that? And what's sort of the plan moving forward?
Well, just like all of us in our lives, we go about with a plan and idea, and sometimes you have to make a left turn to get where you're going. And
COVID taught us that.
Yes, and exactly, and that's what my solo career is. Like I said, it was really going to be one record. I had these songs, I liked them. The solo career evolved out of kind of necessity. During those mid 90s to late 90s, it was difficult. I did have offers, I had offers with Alice Cooper, a couple different things. They just didn't seem right at the time. And I don't want to be a side guy, to be honest. I'd love to have a band where I'm the guitar player. I have a singer. I don't like singing. I mean, I do it because a solo record, I think it's more personal if I sing it. But I'd rather have a singer and just play guitar. It's just the right opportunity hasn't come up. I also think at those times, coming from a band like Guns N' Roses, it was an important step on what I did. And to just join a local band that didn't have a major label deal, might not have been the right decision at the time. So, like I said, I made my left turn, and I'm still trying to work my way to the center of the street.
You're still trying to get there. Yeah. And by the way, the stuff with Heart was great. And I'll start wrapping up, but quickly, Rockstar Supernova. what was that project in terms? Was it sort of a legitimate album and a legitimate project, or the TV guys come to you and say, "Listen, here are these songs. Go record them." How contrived was it? How honest was it?
Because no,
okay. Okay.
It was 100% honest and accurate. When we decided, so I'm going to tell you this quick story. So when they did the very first Rockstar show, which was with In Excess, right? The idea was the band playing behind those singers, they wanted like an all-star band. So I got a call. It's like, Gilby, you do those Thursday night Cat Club gigs and, Camp Freddy and all that kind of stuff. Why don't you put a band together and maybe you guys will be the band? So I put some guys together and we went and we auditioned for Mark Burnett. My band was myself, Ryan Rossi on guitar, Dizzy played keyboards, Steve Gorman on drums, and Johnny Colt on bass. That was my band. So we played for them, and as we were playing, Mark Burnett, the producer, kept asking us to play more songs. We only learned like 4 or 5 songs as a unit. And so they came up to us afterwards and said to me, I don't think it's right. We're going to go in a different direction for the backing band. And I said, hey, peace. Wonderful. So then the next year came on when they were going to have a new season. And I got a call from Mark and his producer. And they said, look, we have an idea. We want to create a new band. We want to take that super group kind of idea, start a new band and put a singer into it. What do you think about that? And I think that's awesome. I was not a big fan of TV and rock and roll. I think it's never really been represented correctly. The bands always get the short end of the stick. But after having conversations with Mark Burnett, he got it. He said, look, I'm going to stay out of your creative process. You guys be you. I'm never going to tell you what to say, what to do. Just be yourself. And he did. Like, even when we started the show, he let me, I never once was told what to say ever on that show. Now, when we went to pick the musicians for the band, I had a clear idea of who I wanted. I kind of wanted those guys like I said, like Steve Gorman, a Johnny Colt, Eric Singer, guys like that is kind of, it's, not the A-team guys, but some good, credible musicians. But then Tommy Lee had got word that we were doing this, and he called Mark, and he kind of took over. So what was my project kind of became Tommy's project. But with that being said, Tommy's manager, Carl, is a really great guy. He knows the industry really well. He knows TV. And I really trusted him with his opinion. And through Tommy, we brought in Jason Newsted. So we did try, and it was a very organic. We sat in my rehearsal room and worked on songs and wrote songs, and we brought Butch in. But yeah, all those songs were written by us, good, bad, or whatever. I mean, I wish the project had more time to kind of marinate and really find our sound. But from, doing a live TV show, those tapings of every single day and trying to rehearse, and Tommy's schedule, and Jason lived in the Bay Area, it was a little difficult to really give it what it should have been. I think there's moments on the record that are okay, and I think there's moments that are pretty cruddy. But we did give it, the old school try. We really did. It was 100% real. We wrote it all. We played it all. And like I said, hey, actually in Canada we did fairly well.
You did fairly well in Canada. What was Lucas Rossi sort of picked from the beginning, and you go through the show, or was it actual competition where people were being eliminated and he won? You know what I mean? Because
I know what you're saying.
Sometimes it's scripted.
Yeah, well, no, that was not scripted. But
okay.
I got to tell you, there was only one time in all those things that I don't want to say they let us pick who went home every single time. There was only one time when they suggested for the show, maybe you should get rid of this person instead of the person you want to. And it was in the very beginning. And to be honest, they were right. It's like they know what TV drama is. Only one time. Every time we picked the person. But with that being said, from the very beginning, it was Lucas and Delana's. It was theirs. The first time we saw Delana, I literally called my wife. I go, you got to hear this girl sing. I've never heard anything like it, And Tommy was one who really, really liked Lucas. There was something about him that he really liked, and he was his champion. Where myself and Jason were in his ear going, Delana. So it was just kind of that thing where we had to choose for the band, and we did agree with him in the end. We thought Lucas was the right guy.
Yeah, listen, Delana's great, and then she went and spent some time with LA Guns, which I thought was that was fun, Well, I was going to ask you some more, but Alan, any other questions? And because otherwise we should probably wrap it up. We've done it all, I think.
No, I'd just like to say it was a pleasure to talk with Gilby after so many years. It's been a long time, and as I said, as far as I'm concerned, Gilby's a genuine rock and roll soul, and whichever band he's in, he's going to bring the right attitude.
Thank you, Alan. That means a lot coming from you.
Yeah, I fully agree, and I think Rock and Roll is Getting Louder, which came out in the spring. I think it's just a phenomenal new song. It sounds authentic. It sounds real, and I think Golden Robot has it right, because these slow teases, had the whole album come out in April, as we're talking here at the end of August, we probably would be forgetting it or be like, oh yeah, right, it came out. This way, it's like, oh hey, Gilby's back with the Gospel Truth, and then in a couple of weeks, oh, Gilby's back with, so smart. I think it's smart, right, Alan?
Yeah,
I thoroughly agree. It's repetition and persistence. I mean, back in the day when we had 20 record companies in LA, and you could paper your bathroom with rejection letters. It was all about persistence and one for all and all for one, and a sense of brotherhood within the band to sustain and eventually make your mark. And I think you've got to take that kind of thinking into the contemporary environment, and whatever you do, plan it long term.
Yeah. Well, once again, this is one of those instances where, if I just put the record out on my own, I would not have done it this way. And I trust them. You know, they are a record company. Granted, they're new, you know, but they're, you know, they're learning as they go along, and there will be some mistakes, you know, but you know, they're going in with the right ideas. They're listening to the right people around them, and I'm listening to them. You know, if this is their part. My job is to write, record, and perform. You know, my part is kind of already done. I mean, you know, obviously I have to do a little promotion and marketing, but for the most part, this is their gig. You know, if this is how they feel, I'm going to trust it.
Yeah, and listen, Mark has had successful tattoo shops, restaurants, and so. I mean, he's not just a guy who has a record company. He has an empire, for the lack of a better word. So, I think he knows what he's doing. He knows how to build.
He has the passion, and he has the passion for it too, which is one of the key things for me when I first sat down with him, was his passion. To me, it matched like my passion. You know, sometimes, you know, there are things that I just love, and like I start glowing, you know, and that's the way he is when he talks about music and a certain style of music. He loves rock and roll. He loves guitars. He likes classic rock. Sometimes classic rock is a bad word. It's never a bad word to me, you know, but and I really applaud him for, you know, going into his pocket, you know, and putting a lot on the line to make this happen.
Absolutely. And on that, merci, monsieur. Thank you so much. Alan, last words?
The last word is be safe, be well, be happy.
Right on, brother.
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody. Merci. Have a good day.
Take care.
That was great. Thank you.